Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm talking again about one of my favourite synthesizers, the Kodamo Mask1. And again, I don't really have a plan for this video. Recently I took the step of wiping all of the user patches from my Mask1. So you can see basically now all the 600 spots are init patches, except for, I think over the weekend I just did a couple of noise patches, so did that one, then this one. So obviously I came up with this basic noise patch first. So what have we got here? We've just got noise, sustain 15, so that's full sustain, with a long release 12. Going into the filter, the cutoff is right down at the bottom. Resonance is halfway up on high pass mode. Full tracking. On 24 dB per octave mode. Now I have got a bit going on with the LFO1. Slow speed to the noise frequency, but that's having almost no effect. And no effects. So that's with the high pass filter. Low pass filter. Band pass. Notch. Now if I turn the resonance down on the notch, it'll have more of an effect. So while I was making that patch, I did notice actually you could get quite an interesting effect using the ARP, I think. And I think that inspired me to make up the next patch, which was using the same basic noise patch, but coming up with more of a rhythmic character. So here I'd obviously realised that LFO1 was not really doing anything, so I turned it off. LFO2, we've got the speed at 12, full amount, going to the noise volume using a square wave. That's quite a nice sound. There's just a couple of things I'd mention about the LFOs. So they're always free running, so you can't sync that effect to key press. and you also can't sync it to MIDI tempo or even the tempo of the internal art at the moment. And I think if there's one thing one of the things that would be great if they could update in a firmware update for this would be to be able to sync things like the LFOs, the envelopes, and the FX, especially the delay, to both the internal tempo, which you could set using the ARP, and also the external MIDI tempo. That would make this kind of sound much easier to use in context. I don't want these videos to come across as kind of sales pitches for the Mask1. I really enjoy using it and it's a great instrument. I have quite a long list of requests of things that if Kodamo implemented, would make it even better. And I think having more options on the LFOs in terms of syncing them to key press and syncing to MIDI tempo would make this instrument even better. As I mentioned in a previous video, you already do have some quite nice options in the LFOs because you have this delay, which is something you don't always see on synthesizers. So there you see there's a period of delay before the LFO takes effect, which is great. At the moment the maximum value is 15, and I would say if you could extend that further, let's say to 31 or 63, that would be more useful, because as you can hear, that maximum period of delay isn't particularly long. Let's go to decay. So this is how long the LFO will operate for before it fades out. Let's put it on the maximum value, 15. Now there's a problem there, because it seems like the times for delay and decay aren't cumulative. They're running at the same time. So the LFO is fading in, but it's also hitting the point at which it ends at pretty much the same time. So if I turn the delay down all the way to 0, you hear that maximum decay time is not very long. Because even with it on maximum, it's having no effect. So it's more useful for things like claps, where you want the effect to end very quickly. But again, if you could have those 2 times cumulative, because obviously if you have the delay, you want the decay to start taking effect after the delay comes in. But also I think both time periods need to be extended to make them more useful. So I don't want this to be a series of complaints about the Mask1. As I say, I really enjoy using it. There's just a couple of things I'd point out where they could really improve the flexibility and usability of those LFOs. So I came up with a few new patches over the weekend. This one's using mask 120. It's got a bit of a pitch envelope, starting at -4. And we have some vibrato there on a slow speed. There we go. Okay. So what's going on here? This is using mask 26. And if you listen carefully, you can hear some mask movement there. Let's have a look what's going on there. Okay, so it's starting at 1 below 26, so actually the first mask you hear is 25. And then it's going up to mask 26 at a speed of 3. And it's looping in a bidirectional movement, so it's going up and down. It's quite subtle there. So that's LFO1, that's oscillator 1, sorry. What's oscillator 2 doing? Pretty much the same thing, except oscillator 2 is starting on 25 and is going up to 26. So on oscillator 2, the first mask you hear is 26, and then it's coming down and going back up. So you've got the two masks, or the two oscillators, going this way with the mask delta envelopes. It's quite subtle. And obviously we've got lots of effects going on there, so we've got reverb, reverb 1, the standard reverb at 50%. And then FX1 is chorus. And again, the chorus is really lovely on this. Let's try it dry. Let's put the chorus on. And with the reverb again. And it sounds like there's some pitch envelopes, so let's have a look at that. Yes, so we're starting at -4, going at a speed of 6. So let's slow the speed down. Now let's change the play mode there. So that made me think. Was it Paris? We'll try that. Yeah, that's something I need to play with more, those different play modes. There's no noise. there is filter envelope, so we're using the low pass filter. And I suspect that is masking the mask movement. So let's have a listen. If we take the filter off, let's take off the envelope. Yeah, so obviously I've got a much longer release here. So release on oscillator 2 is 14, whereas it's only 9 on oscillator 1. But then the filter envelope was 12. Anyway, that's that sound. It's quite interesting to just hear the kind of the bitmask movement there. I think that's probably part of the distinctive sound of this instrument, that kind of glitchy transition between two related but different timbres like that on a rhythmic basis. Okay. This one's called bass. Let's play it lower. Okay. So we're using Mask20, which, let's just take the filter off. Have a look at the shape for Mask20. You see it's kind of got the characteristics of a square wave mixed with a sine wave. So we've got both oscillators going, so what's oscillator 2 is 28. So we're hearing 2, let's... Yeah, so that's quite a square wave. Sound. I think we're looking at the FFT. Looks like we're hearing only really the odd harmonics. That's what it looks like, and that's what it sounds like as well. So, where are we? Mask 20. Mask 8 is generally considered to be the traditional square wave. If you look at the front panel there. Let's have a look. So on the oscilloscope you can see that's kind of squarey, and we were on 20. Similar. And you'll notice there 20 is an octave, it's sounding an octave lower than 8. So you'll hear 0 to 7 is one set of bit masks. Then when we transition, so 7 is the sawtooth wave, again, you'll see from the front panel. And as we transition to 8, we go down an octave. You see the fundamental there changing. 15. My favourite bit mask, half sine. And then we've gone down an octave again. We also change in amplitude as well. I've mentioned this before. Then we get to smooth sine wave at 31, and then we get to 32. There's another jump, so we go down an octave again and change in amplitude again. So that's quite interesting, looking at the transition on the oscilloscope and the FFT. 31, smooth sine wave. And we kind of, as we go down from 31 to 16, I wouldn't say we're introducing more harmonics necessarily, but the timbre is changing in a kind of linear way. Right, we've got away from the original patch I was looking at now, but I want to pull on this thread. So how do we automate that, or how do we use that in a sound? Now, one way is using the delta bitmask envelopes in the oscillators. So let's try that. So 31, we want to go down to 16. So we're going to go minus 15. This is really testing my maths. Yeah, the default speed is 12, which in itself is quite interesting. That's almost transitioning at audio rate through the bit masks. And because it happens so quickly, you can't really take account of it. But you could use that in a kind of chiptune setting, maybe. So if I loop it, that's giving an effect. Now, if I combine it with the amplitude envelope, okay, I've got a different play mode here. Let's put it on poly. Again, that's sounding quite chiptuney. What happens if we loop the amplitude envelope? That's interesting, and I can see how this sound could be musical. Let's put some delay on it. You can hear almost Mario exploring a underground cave world or something. But let's go back to what we were looking at before, which was this mask transition. So whenever you're using the looping feature on the bitmasks, what I always do is experiment to hear which I prefer between standard looping, just going round and round, and bidirectional. And it varies depending where you are, what you're trying to achieve. Let's change the speed. Very interesting when you get up into these higher audio rates. It would be really nice to be able to key track this. Because at certain pitches, the interaction between all the different looping and timbre changes which are going on are really interesting, like this A here. You get this kind of phasing effect. If you could replicate that across the keyboard, that would be cool. Okay, often when I get to this point I put some release on. Because when you get that kind of overlapping transition between different notes, I think that gets interesting as well. Obviously the delta envelopes are key triggered. Nice. Okay, so let's have a go with the filter, see what that can do to the sound. obviously it's got similarities with wavetable synthesis. And to a certain extent with FM synthesis, possibly. And one of the interesting things is here you're getting this really high harmonic that is way away from the fundamental. It's kind of so that is what you would use wavetables or FM to achieve normally. And it's quite interesting watching the sound on the FFT as well as hearing it. So obviously you've got the movement of the resonant filter there, but you've also got the harmonic impact of changing the bit masks as well. Okay. We've kind of strayed away from what I had half tried to do, which was go through this bitmask transition in a methodical way. I've got led down into a kind of sound exploration again. Let's get rid of the filter. Let's turn off the delta mask on oscillator 1, because the other way to modulate through the masks is using the LFOs. And unlike the delta envelopes in the oscillators, the LFOs are not key synced. So, as I've said at the start of the video, so the interesting, well, one of the points to note is that, okay, so we've got mount 1 there. It's not like in the delta envelopes where, you know, a value of 1 means you're going up or down 1 bit mask. In the thread on Gearspace, I posted the results of my analysis of what these numbers actually mean in terms of amount for LFO, what's going on in terms of how far up or down the bit mask table an amount of 1 is going. What about 2? Now that sounds subtly different to 1. I can hear it, I'm not sure if it's going to come through on YouTube, but there's some high harmonic content there, which, and I think what's happening here is that between the main bit masks there are kind of least significant bits, so there are kind of transitions that you can hear to a certain extent when you modulate. If you just go through the bit masks by hand using the knob, then all you hear are the main bit masks. If you modulate through them using the delta envelope, or the LFO, then you can hear these kind of masks between the main bit masks. And with the delta envelope, it's harder in a way because you're setting a fixed integer value for the start point of the modulation. So you're always starting on a main bit mask, and if you listen carefully and you have a slow transition, you can hear as it hits the kind of least significant bits. But here with the LFO, what I worked out is that the LFO is actually starting, I think here we're using a sine wave. Yeah. But the kind of the top and the bottom of the modulation is actually ending or starting in a least significant bit, which is why I think that's more obvious. That really high buzzy sound that you don't hear, you hear on value 2. But not on value 1. I don't know if any of that's going to come through on YouTube, so maybe that was all just wasted. Okay, let's have a 3. Let's have a look at 3. So there it's more obvious even still. Yeah. Okay, so let's turn the speed down. Okay, so what's happened there? I think when you go that high, it's modulating the bit mask position below 0, I think. And that is why you have this period of nothing. That could be useful in sound design. Now, as I've mentioned, because these amounts aren't directly related to the position in the bit mask table, it can be harder to do intentional sound design using the LFOs on the bit masks. If you look at the table I published on the Gearspace forum piece for the Mask1, you can see what the values are, if that's useful for you, and hopefully you'll be able to use that to try and work out more what's actually happening with these LFOs, because I found it quite difficult until I went through and methodically tried to work out, using the oscilloscope, what the modulation actually was doing. And you can hear how the LFO has a completely different character modulating the bit masks to the delta envelopes, and they each have their own place. And here destination is mask, so that will modulate the masks of both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. You do have options for individually modulating mask 1 and mask 2, which could be useful for more complicated patches. Okay, let's use a looping filter envelope. is I find it quite an interesting sound that is difficult to imagine coming up with something similar on another synth. As I say, I mean, this is more like wave sequencing, I guess. But would you really sit down and come up with this on a wave sequencing synth? I've not done much wave sequencing, so I don't know, but I find it quite appealing just as a raw sound, although it can be difficult to imagine how you'd use it in context. But it's quite beautiful, I'd say, in a way. Okay, this has been a bit of a long video, but hopefully it's been interesting. I've covered a bit more of the detail of the bitmasks and how they work and what you use them for. If anyone's got any questions, anything they'd like me to investigate in the Mask1 for future videos, please just leave a comment. And as I say, a like and a subscribe is appreciated. And if you've watched this far, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.